Здравейте.
Hi, Moni. We started
Hi, Moni.
recording. Okay.
Right.
Another day, another session.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our third session for this year. As some of you may be aware, we started with the introduction of Azure governance, high-level overview. Then our second session was a bit of a deep dive in the cost management discipline. And now it's time for the deep dive to the second discipline of Azure Cloud Governance, which is the security baseline. So the agenda for today, as usual, we will start with all the new things that Microsoft introduced in the past month. And then we'll continue with the main topic for today's session. And of course, we'll have at the end time for questions and answers. And hopefully we'll have some nice discussion. We'll be happy to hear your experience of implementing the security baseline, building a security MVP. So, and a bit of introduction for us. My name is Nicolae Markov. I've been in the IT industry for 20 years. My main focus is cloud technologies. Mainly, I'm trying to help small and large organizations adopt the cloud and get all the benefits of it. And my colleague, Nick Panchev.
Similar role. I focus mostly on M365 and Azure, and was helping teams and cloud adoption projects proceed. So yeah, plenty of experience that we can share.
Cool stuff. Okay, so starting with what's new. In Azure front, there have been a lot of good stuff introduced, so we just picked a few of them. We'll discuss a bit more in the upcoming topics, but some of the things that I've picked in Azure side are workspace functionality in Azure, API management, some better way of managing the TOS certificates from the Azure portal connected to the listeners, and some pretty, I would say, good improvement in terms of performance of some of the Azure disks. Unfortunately, as I said, I wasn't able to list all of the updates. There are some very good updates in terms of the backup of Azure files, which are in private preview, but and also the blob storage. But I plan to include them in the next session.
Okay, as far as my updates, this time we will ride the AI wave. I thought it would be more interesting to provide some updates across M365, the Power Platform, and the Microsoft Security Stack related to the Copilot/OpenAI integration that Microsoft announced over the last month. So this will be my main focus. Some pretty interesting things over there.
Absolutely. Maybe at some point we may also include completely separate session for the AI stuff.
For sure.
And we'll bring more and more in that direction. Okay, so starting with the workspaces in API management, it's this functionality is in preview actually, and the main benefit of this is that it's enabled the central platform team to maintain platform infrastructure, but at the same time allow the let's say product API teams to independently manage and publish APIs in their own workspace, so without to interrupt the other teams. So I would say that this additional feature, which helps to have this separate freedom for the people to bring their products and to continuously deliver value. So the second one, is again not some, let's say, major thing, but for example, in the app gateway, when you have you may have a lot of listeners, and sometimes it may become pretty hard to manage all of these. So with this new functionality, which is also in preview, you can manage all of the certificates from the portal, as you see on the picture here, which in general should improve your day-to-day operations, I would say. Keep in mind that it's good to have a look at some of the limitation of these. And something which I believe is, how to say, underestimated and not known to the people, is that this new, how to say, not offering, but capability of some of the disk offering from Azure, as you see. So Azure Premium SSD and standard SSD and HDD. So this actually option is in preview, and in general, it will improve for free the IOPS of your disks. The important thing is that it can be enabled only, actually it can't be enabled through the portal. So keep in mind, and the disk have to be 513 gigabytes or larger. And the other important limitation is that you can enable this only on new disks. But my suggestion would be to you can try to experiment with this and add it to your infrastructure as a code to enable it for the creation, at least starting with non-production environment, and to get this improved performance in general, which is free at the moment. Okay.
Okay, so the AI stuff has really blown everything else out of the water, as they say, in the last since ChatGPT 3 was announced back in November, was it? This is probably going to be one of the biggest breakthroughs in technology over the next few years, maybe the next decade, depending on how things proceed. But I'm in technology for so many years, and I've never seen an evolution so quick. I mean, we know, we've seen how many things have been developed over the years, especially when it comes to the cloud. But this is by far the biggest progress in a short time span that I've ever seen. When it comes to Microsoft, they obviously made a smart investment, and they want to capitalize on this as quickly as possible, because this is going to be a real battle between the bigger companies and the bigger providers to get their AI models as quickly as possible to the market. So what Microsoft is doing, they're investing a lot of money to push this through to all of their products, basically, and have the competitive advantage across the different cloud providers. So what I can tell you from the stuff that I've seen, and I also seen some things that are kind of closed out yet and not being shared out. But from what I can tell, and we're going to dive into the different portfolios, but when it comes to the Microsoft 365 Copilot, this is going to have for some departments, some business units, this is probably going to have a profound impact on how they work. I mean, I put some bullets on the slide, and I've included the marketing materials, the video that Microsoft has posted, I think, on the 16th for Copilot. But obviously, like I said, they're pushing this out across the whole stack of applications. All of the major ones like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Teams, and there are different benefits across the different products. To me, probably the most upfront, the most thing that people would recognize is the Excel one, where you can analyze data very quickly especially if your company uses a lot of spreadsheets still, or they usually finance departments work with a lot of spreadsheets and they're being exchanged with clients. This is something that can quickly analyze information, provide some highlights, all types of analysis that can be done on the existing data. So it's really up there. I urge you to look at all of the available materials for this specific one. There's a couple of videos on YouTube as well for people actually experimenting with it. Microsoft has not pushed this out to everyone yet. It's sort of a rolling updates, and the first companies that got introduced to it, or people on the inside that are within Microsoft, has shown this. But the Word one, you can really, if what it really shines is if you want to create a material and you don't know where to start, this is really helping. I've seen a live demo where a person wanted to create a marketing material from scratch, just an idea, and this will give you a draft in a couple of seconds where you just go and review and make changes to it.
Yeah. I remember this podcast. It's a very famous podcast where actually the guys there have been using the ChatGPT for building this plot. So and what they mentioned is actually, I mimic their words, is that it's really hard to start to build the plot. And this is the majority of the time where you have to put in general. So definitely it's much easier and you'll be much more productive to have this kind of assistance to create the plot, and then you can focus on the editing and enrich your presentation.
Yeah, they market specifically the M365 Copilot as a very knowledgeable colleague who works with you alongside you, creating the data or analyzing the data. Now, this will be a major incentive for companies who don't use the cloud to store their data, because if you don't have it in the cloud, this is pretty much worthless. It uses Microsoft Graph to get the data. There are some specifics to how that would work in an enterprise, given their obviously regulatory requirements and what can be uploaded. We'll probably spend another session when we're going to talk about Azure OpenAI service and how that effectively is an enterprise service, providing ChatGPT functionality, but on an enterprise level, along with all of the security controls. For M365 Copilot, I think it's just so many things there. The Teams one is also very interesting. You can join a meeting. I'm not sure if it was on the video, but it's called Business Chat, and you can join a meeting late, and you can ask the Copilot, what happened up while what did I miss? And since, especially if the meetings are in English, it will give you a sort of a summary of what went on, what are the current key points, what are the takeaways, and any tasks that are being defined or assigned to people. This will spell it out immediately. So it's like never something we never seen before. We had AI integrated with standard language models previously, where you have to train them to specific things, but this is much more useful compared to what we had previously. So the M365 Copilot will definitely be something that people would recognize. As far as who can use them, I think details are scarce. From what I know, it will be available to E3 and E5 customers as well as the business tier. There are talks about a new SKU coming into M365 E7, but just rumors by now. I will be curious to see what they're actually going to provide with it. But they're definitely going to exploit the hell out of AI across all of the stack.
I think it makes sense to have E7 because they already introduce Teams Premium, and most probably they'll include it there. And actually, all of these. By the way, I thought to ask you, Which colleague you would like to work more and you're more excited?
Well, sometimes it's a lot easier to talk to AI to get things done. But all jokes aside, I think this would be really, really helpful to people. Next thing is the Power Platform Copilot. Like I noted in the bullet points, this is very different from the previous one. So obviously, this is targeted towards people who want to use the Power Platform to develop low-code applications. From my experience, there is still a fine line between the different sets of users that we have in an organization. Sometimes many of them are still scared to go in, even into a local development platform and do things on their own because they think they need to have prior skills and they need to be aware of stuff before they actually can create. So even though the Power Platform is very easy compared to having being a Visual Studio developer, it's a lot easier to get into. It's still not for everyone, from what I can see. Now, what Copilot does here, it adds a level of abstraction between you and the Power Platform, an additional one, because the Power Platform is a level of abstraction for development. And it will this is what I can say. This is for people who don't want to do anything as far as technology goes. This is more of a, I have an idea, here's my idea, a couple of sentences that you provide to Copilot, and the Copilot provides a draft of an application along with all of its components, like the Power Apps piece, an automation engine, if you want to add a chatbot as well. This will give you a draft of how it looks. And the way you manage the application afterwards is still through the chatbot, through Copilot. And you tell them, change this column with another column in the Dataverse table or in Excel. Split this column apart. And it will do it directly in front of your eyes without you touching anything else. Now, obviously, it will be very hard for you to get to the final solution without fine-tuning it yourself. But this will get you a draft much, 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 much more quicker compared to what you've done previously. I mean, most of the users that I see first will take a course, a one-day course for Power Apps to get themselves familiar with what are the components and what are the different pieces that they have to learn in order to even get started with the interface. Here you just instruct it to do the initial stages of the creation. And the demos that I've seen, it creates a Canvas app in front of you in like 2 minutes if you already have an idea. A very basic one. I mean, the demo was about 3 minutes, and the person created a Power Apps Canvas app, which takes your data input, stores it in a SharePoint site or Dataverse table, and you're able to quickly go into the interface and manage your information in about 3 minutes. So it's very very interesting, very just the ideas here and what AI can do, especially when they integrate future models. This would be even more powerful than it is.
Do you think that these low-code platforms are something temporary? Because it came to my mind that actually with OpenAI and in general ChatGPT, this will streamline enormously the productivity of the dev team. And with the improvement of ChatGPT, actually it make actually all low-code platform obsolete because it will be able to develop pretty solid code in any language, whatever you need, actually. Because I've seen a lot of very, very nice examples of building some not, complex solutions, but
I think at this point nobody knows what the future will look like. Right now everything is being marketed as AI will help you do things much faster than you've done
Which is true.
previously. Yes, which is, you know, effective now. I mean, it's not a wish.
Yeah.
It's not a future point. It is here. But I think generally it's not only going to be the local platforms. I think most platforms will change dramatically. I think, yes, probably local platforms will have a very different vision. Maybe they will just morph into something like AI will control.
Yeah.
But this will be the case for many other things, like how are you going to control your smartphone, and how are you going to control anything that you order, anything that you need a technology to do for you to get to the end goal, like creating a product or ordering something. I think this will have some influence to it, maybe completely overtake it as a means to get to the final destination. I think OpenAI is on the path of creating a platform that will integrate much of the existing cloud services. So me and Nikki have seen people talk about how this will overtake many of the existing platforms for smartphones, for applications generally. So this will definitely have a very, very big impact. I think in the next year or so, we'll probably get an idea where things will go. I think the GPT-5 model will define what the future will look like, because right now the progress for each of these models is exponential. So the next one presumably will be much, much better than this one, which will allow us to do much, much more. And as Microsoft integrates these services directly into Azure and all of the other platforms that it has, I think these applications will look far different in 5 years from now.
Maybe it worth to have some kind of session just for that, like discussion, not presentation.
Also, what other companies will do also have an influence on this. OpenAI is at least two or three steps ahead of everyone just because of how things progressed. But maybe companies like Facebook and Google and others who are developing AI models will get into this as well. So we are in the sort of the dawn of a very competitive market.
It just started.
Yeah.
The entire thing, and
So a lot of companies are already asking for AI, asking Microsoft what they need to do. The Azure OpenAI development platform is heavily being requested as a service, and companies are trying to integrate with ChatGPT immediately with their in existing apps. Because, like I said, this is a competitive advantage. This will give you more for your money compared to what others who are not using it.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's agree that we will have separate discussion only on that. Good stuff.
Kind of the same thing, just on the security front. Now, we've talked about security many times, especially the Microsoft security stack. We are very interested in it. I think Microsoft's plans will change dramatically. I think nobody saw this coming 2 years ago, where this had a roadmap, how things will progress with the security stuff, because AI can tremendously help in the analysis of signals and just the overall management of security, because it can streamline it tremendously. A lot of the companies have a problem with finding the right staff, either for their security operations centers or security architects to define strategies. Here, combined with all of the existing portfolio like Sentinel and the Defender suite, and all of the signals that Microsoft collects.
The entire integration of the ecosystem.
Yeah, they have so many data to work with in their cloud. They can create a model that's much more powerful than anybody else, I think, just because the sheer number of data. I think the biggest problem with AI, not a problem, but the biggest differentiator between companies would be how much data do you currently have to funnel through this AI to make it even more smarter. So Again, Microsoft is ahead of everyone just because they have such a big footprint in almost every organization, and how they sell their products, bundling up to the licenses, uh, will make will make things even more. The progress will even be even more great compared to others. So I think from the security standpoint, in the next few years, a lot more companies will adopt the security portfolio because of the Copilot features and how they integrate them. Because this way, you will be able to manage security with less staff, which has always been a problem. I mean, right now, the security market is still looking for many professionals, and this will help out the management for sure.
Yeah.
As far as the feature goes, in the video, if you look at the video, and I mean, we muted the volume obviously, but if you look at the video from the site, this nice lady will tell you that this uh, um, can be used for static analysis of PowerShell codes, malware analysis directly, so you don't have to wait for another team to analyze a sample. This can be done automatically. We've seen ever since ChatGPT was presented how it can be integrated with Sentinel to analyze different events and show stuff that wasn't discovered by real people who have this task. And from what I saw in the comments specifically on the security copilot is people are just not, I'm not sure how much this would cost, because right now the security products are relatively expensive for enterprises. So that's why the adoption is not that good yet. But I think Microsoft strategy will work how they did it with Office 365 previously. They'll bundle things up with
E7.
yeah, and you will get all of the stuff. I mean, you will pay more, but you will probably get more for your money, especially with AI. So yeah, the security Copilot, I didn't see too much demos on it, so probably we'll keep you posted as we have these sessions on what's interesting with it compared to the other AI stuff.
Yeah, even before this, as you mentioned in the beginning with the roadmap 2 years ago, even before that, Microsoft became a leader in multiple of the security field. But with this addition, I think they will. It would be very hard for their competitors to catch up.
Yeah.
Because of all of this integration that was already in place, and right now when you have the AI behind it, which can significantly offload and improve your operational security operations.
Also, another big factor is the shift to Azure as a platform. I mean, compared to a few years ago, I think the market share for Azure has expanded. And the minute you move to Azure, it makes sense for you to use some of these security features because you're already paying for them, or you have to pay a small amount to get there. Nikki has good experience comparing the two major cloud platforms, especially on the security front. And
yeah, and also as you said, like companies like VMware, which are the one of the leaders of on-prem world. Right now, their Azure VMware solution is pretty mature, so even they have good integration with Azure environment. So,
okay, I think that's it for the news. I mean, we'll keep you posted. That this is one of the most exciting things that we've seen. We are very interested in learning more. We'll definitely share some details as we learn. But yeah, exciting times.
Absolutely. Okay, moving to the second discipline of Azure Governance series. I will start with just quick reminder that actually all of these presentations are representing our point of view, and they're a combination of some very matured formal approaches from the cloud adoption framework, well-architected framework. However, they're combined with our experience implementing all of these with our customers. So keep in mind that there would be some different or maybe slightly different translation on some of the formal suggestion from Microsoft team. Okay, what's all about? A security baseline is actually just set of controls, configurations, best practices that define the minimum viable product, if I can say that way, or the minimum level, this, as mentioned, security baseline for your Azure environment. Of course, it started with risk assessment. What are the major risks for our organization? What are our goals? How we would like to mitigate this risk? What we can do, what kind of services we can do, how to build the policies, the processes, which will help us continuously maintaining these risks and have adequate mitigation to them. And at the end, to have a secured and compliant organization. So, as I mentioned in the previous slide, we need that because actually there's in nowadays, that just to recall some of the introduction of the AI stuff, it can be used for defending yourself. Actually, you can use it pretty successfully for the other way around, and the things become even more, it becomes even more important to think about building this fundamental baseline, this minimum security, how to say, the minimum number of policies which will address your identified risk and meet your business goals and continuously meet your business goals. So, of course, the benefit of this are pretty obvious. At the end, we have secured and governed cloud, and not only cloud environment, because some of the products, Microsoft products right now can work with on-prem, can work with the other major cloud providers, so they can help you to have pretty solid security fundamental being built in across the multi-cloud or hybrid cloud environment. Okay. So some of the security baseline components, not all of them, are, as you see, identity and access management, network security, data protection, endpoint protection, and security monitoring and incident response. Throughout the presentation, you'll see, and I guess you already can recall some of the good Microsoft product, and not only Microsoft product, that can help with that.
Also, we had a session specifically how we map these to Defender.
Yeah, we had last year. You may have a look. It is in Bulgarian, so maybe later this year we'll have jump again to the Defender suite. As it's also there's a lot of improvement and changes in it. So starting with identity and access management, in nowadays, you know that having multi-factor authentication, things like conditional access policies are something very, how to say, fundamentals. So Microsoft last year introduced these security defaults, which are actually applied for all new Azure tenants and
by default, yeah.
By default, yeah. So this is, however, a very broad topic, which will have. That's why it's having separate discipline in the cloud governance called identity. So,
and the reason why it was created is because of what we mentioned earlier, that there isn't enough knowledgeable people to manage tenants, but that doesn't stall the progress. So people get in the cloud, they move into the cloud, they move their data, most importantly. So Microsoft, based on their experience having so many clients, so many different environments, they can come up with a very, I would say, good baseline that will be applicable to most. And if it's not applicable to someone, you can change it, obviously. But the baseline, like enabling multi-factor authentication or expiration of passwords or going passwordless overall, is helping out smaller companies who don't have enough of expertise to manage this. So security baseline is definitely, and AI can add to this because it can analyze your environment and can provide you with more specific examples of something that you can apply as controls. But as far as just out of the box experience, that's a very good start.
And as I mentioned in the previous session, based on our experience, actually, the identity part of Azure is always, so in general, security is always very underestimated and not well covered. Okay, not always, but in the majority of cases. And this is the place for biggest room for improvement. But when we go to even further to the identity part, it's
I
totally.
think cost management, and this is probably the most underestimated.
Exactly. Yeah, cost management. I would say that even there's a good improvement in cost management, maybe because of the Azure Advisor. I hope that with the Defender it will be the same, but I'm not sure because Defender is much harder and much broader than the Azure Advisor in general. It provides much more, and nowadays it's provide really a lot of things that you can.
And cost management. We already did a session on cost management, but cost management also excelled because the cloud has been here for a while and people got their first bill and how much things would cost. So that's why they've taken action on it. But for security, probably until you're hacked or something, you wouldn't.
Yeah. So actually, the cost management is you mitigate it.
Yeah, because you already know how much.
Yeah. So by the way, you can have a look at our previous video. I believe that we listed, I would say, all of the mitigation that you can do in order to have a very cost-effective spending for your Azure environment. Of course, this continuation of the previous slide. Following the least privilege principles, Microsoft and Azure provide pretty good mechanism of doing that. So just-in-time access, privilege identity management, these are tools that you definitely have to think about their usage. By the way, I know that you have experience with things like CyberArk. Maybe you can put some insight how they compare at the moment. I know that they have the good improvement and they're very good in the on-prem world.
When we started using CyberArk, Azure didn't have any of these features. So that's why
they get this competitive advantage of being first.
Yes. This was this still a company. And it's still a leader for the most part because it's been here for a while. It provides very good benefit, especially if you still have a lot of on-premise stuff. But over the last few years, Microsoft invested a lot of money in PIM. Just-in-time access as well, other features that are related to Defenders for managing credentials or the Defender for identity as well. And it depends on the case, but I think where it will win the most is what we've talked about previously. If you don't have very specific requirements and these are more general, money will win at the end because you will get a better deal for your money compared to going to CyberArk, especially with the multi-factor authentication. I think it's a no-brainer to go to Microsoft at this point. I don't believe there is any benefit going an external MFA provider like CyberArk, Jamalt, or any other provider, since your accounts are pretty much there. You have an app, so it covers most of the requirements, and it can be integrated with pretty much any service, whether it be on-prem, in the cloud, another cloud, whatever it is.
Yep, good stuff. So moving forward with network security, of course, it's even that we see this shift to move the perimeters, our perimeters to the identity part, following the layer defense approach. Of course, it's still securing our network is still crucial and important. And here, Microsoft also, I would say, are leader in this field. I had the opportunity to implement and design very large-scale landing zones and participate in the design in both Azure and AWS. And what we found out is actually Microsoft security product in terms of network security are extremely more mature, and they're
which is kind of strange.
Far away from comparing to the competitors. Things like having end-to-end encryption, having this TLS termination earlier in your, let's say, workflow. So yeah, definitely a lot of things that you can do with things like Azure Firewall, Bastion host. There's something very crucial to combine with the private endpoints. I've seen very nice design actually where the traffic, you forward the traffic before the private endpoints to the firewall, which was kind of, not very popular way. But yeah, definitely Microsoft can help you with all the necessary security services in terms of in order you to be able to secure your network.
Yeah.
So moving to the data protection, I'm sure that this is very favorite part of my colleague, but it's also favorite to me. At the end, we'll see in the next slides, but the most important thing that we try to protect is actually the data. And we've seen in the previous sessions about the Microsoft product in that direction. They have a lot of experience with data protection, not only in Azure, but also in on-prem environment everywhere.
It's been present as a functionality for decades now.
Yeah. So definitely this is one of the very important components that you should think when you build your security baseline.
And it's also probably one of the most complicated to implement because obviously if you want to protect, if you want to label, if you want to govern your data, you would use things like encryption, which you get to a different level and managing data. I mean, compared to just storing it as a separate piece in the SharePoint site or a file share. So this is rather a complicated topic to cover because here this cannot be generic, unfortunately. Many companies have very different requirements, especially the bigger enterprises. So a project like this will be multi-staged. You will have to get a lot of input from your business units and just to know what your data is. Saying that, Microsoft does provide a lot of out-of-the-box capabilities like labeling and the use of sensitivity labels has skyrocketed, I would say, because of the features, especially since it's available to most of the services in the workplace stack, like M365. But still, it requires a lot of attention, and it shouldn't be taken lightly if you're going to be implementing something like this.
Yeah, but I'm sure that actually the AI will help a lot here, especially in the discovery, classify, provide suggestion of the data, identify which data is sensitive.
We had a session previously about, I think I had it on the news for Syntax, which was the SharePoint AI engine, which will label and help you govern your data. But this was more of a trained model specifically to do that. And I think now that they can pipe this to something like ChatGPT, this will be much more powerful.
Absolutely. And not endpoint protection. Also, with Microsoft had pretty good experience of helping you protect your endpoint. They introduced this SKUs of Defender for Endpoint, which was for small businesses. if I'm not mistaken, up to 100 users or something, where you get you get enterprise level of coverage for your needs. So yeah,
Defender for Endpoint, along with Microsoft Endpoint Manager, is probably has seen the biggest adoption across the whole Defender suite, because technically it doesn't have any competition at this point. I mean, VMware had some AirWatch, and what was the Carbon Black. But this is so integrated with everything, especially the connectors to Sentinel. It requires a relatively low license in terms of the enterprise. So to me, it seems, I think this will overtake everything. Companies complain about having multiple agents installed on all the endpoints to cover different needs. And this one does most of them. They're still not at the kind of the top level, but Gartner recently put them at the upper part of the quadrant, so they're basically a market leader, and that happened just a few years apart from when they actually started using it.
And we didn't have any ChatGPT or anything like this, so you can imagine what will happen. And by the way, I've heard a lot of guys saying that Gartner is not the ultimate winner source, but actually it's pretty the people there are putting significant effort to provide, how to say, unbiased point of view. So through the years, I believe
just look at the adoption and it will tell you.
Based on the experience that we got in multiple technologies, I believe they've done a good job. So also another great stuff, another component, of course, security monitoring and incident response. Again, very crucial, fundamental part of your security baseline. Of course, I would say in the past it was much harder to address this stuff, but in the last few days, few years, Microsoft put a lot of effort in that direction. So we have pretty good support in terms of service offering. So right now, things like Sentinel and the integration of Sentinel with all the other Microsoft services you can get, I would say, top solution, which will cover both your monitoring of everything that happened in your environment and provide some kind of immediate response, which will be even streamlined with the AI introduction.
Right.
For sure. Okay.
And for security monitoring, you have to have feedback on how you're doing. I mean, if you want to implement something from the previous steps and you have a strategy and you put some effort to do governance and you've done, not until you actually monitor how things are progressing, you know how well you did. Right? And this is why it's essential.
Yeah. And as you see here, with this, we have multiple services connected. So the ecosystem, the integration is crucial. I've seen, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I've been in a demo of very large security vendor who still used agents for their virtual machines. So not for their virtual machines, but for cloud virtual machines. So it's I'm not saying that this is bad. Of course, maybe with the agent you may have even better functionality, but based on my experience, when we try to introduce something to our customers, it being for security or for some kind of monitoring, for assessment, for example, before migration, when you don't have to install agent on their production environment, they're much more happier. Let's say that way. So this is just slight benefit. So in general, the governance process is the same in all disciplines. So the security baseline, it doesn't make any difference. as I mentioned in the beginning, starting with identifying the business risk, then convert this risk to policies that and processes that can be that can address this risk, and yeah, then at the end establish the process which continuously will monitor and make sure that there's no deviation of this. Starting with the risk assessment, we choose this diagram because I'm not sure how obvious to you is, but let's say that the blue one is the things that you're entirely responsible, and the gray one are the things that the vendor is responsible. So it's pretty easy to see that your biggest risk should be focused about your data. So you should start think about what is my biggest risk. Most probably the thing that I'm most responsible, because Microsoft or the other cloud providers, they have auto security compliance certificate. So you can be sure that they are trying to do. They're putting a lot of effort to have secure their environment. So I would suggest that your risk assessment should start with data. So maybe like example, data breach may be your main risk. This is just an example. But also, of course, the configuration and settings, identity part, and users, especially as we discussed that with this shift to the perimeter, security perimeter to the end user. And as we know, there's it's very important, for example, to have trainings to educate the people, because this is another long topic. Hopefully, in the next session, we will discuss it in more. But in general, as a first step, it would be good to sit down with. It's very important to have someone from the business here, because what I've seen is that actually the risk assessment from the IT perspective, people and the business, it may be very different. This is pretty similar in the very earlier stages of the cloud adoption. So what are the main goals for the IT guys and the business are totally different. I've seen this a lot. So all of the assessments that you're doing, please make sure that you're including someone from the business which has a good which can confirm at the end, which can confirm all of these assumption provided by the folks. So the second thing is that we have to find some metrics which are meaningful for us, which will help us to tolerate to help us to mitigate these risks, either to some kind to classify them. So, for example, you can think about the data classification and to think about the data sources in your cloud environment, to identify your attack surface, how much standards you have to cover, like compliance standards. And yeah, in general, these are some of the examples in terms of that can help you to evaluate the risk tolerance.
And again, we see on the screenshot, it's the secure score service, which is something that has been here for a while. It was actually first presented as within M365, and it was later moved
to the security center.
Yeah. But it gives you, again, they're leveraging all of their existing data that they have across their customers to figure out what are the best practices that people should be looking or comparing to. Now, some of these will not be applicable, or may not be applicable, but usually all the severe ones, like having MFA on your admin accounts, or or some things related to infrastructure, or it really gives you the ability to look at your environment in a good way without having to dig through some of the things yourself. So it doesn't end there. Obviously, you have to use other services as well to come up with the best metrics, feedback for your environment. But this is a very good starting point, I think.
Yeah, and what is important to remember in terms of risk tolerance metric is you have to have a look at your environment, and following some of these examples that I mentioned, this will help you to understand how much, let's say, investment in terms of time and money you have to do in order to make sure that your environment is secure. And it's of course always easier to have some kind of formal approach or document all of these in order to get the expected results. Another thing is risk tolerance indicators. So as we multiple times we discussed cloud, Microsoft Cloud in general provide good baseline of services and feature that can help you to have a secure environment, but it's important to once you have the baseline and have like the minimum established security services to continue improve that. So there could be some some indicators that could be the you have to think why you going in that direction. What is the, let's say, what is the trigger to the reason to apply to address something. So actually these risk tolerance indicators may help you with that. Think about the deployment planning and testing. So before actually, I think this is a process in all organizations, large organization. So each new application, it doesn't matter, developed by the organization or it's just adopted, but should go through some kind of good review, if I can say that way. So you have to create this kind of plan, testing, this kind of process where you will have all of these reviews, which will cover all the security aspects. Usually this is responsibility to the IT security team, and they're leading that. But what we've seen in the past is actually it's important the central teams to try to offload the responsibility of that to the actual product team, which will going to be the product owner of this product in order to maintain and accept all the, let's say, deviation of the established security practices. But in general, it's important to have this reviewing process of all the new application in place. Also, what I've seen as a missing point in a lot of organization is to have this kind of evaluation, because for every single area in the code, we don't have anything static. So things change, and actually, when you have some applications which are compliant at one moment and they're pretty secure, after 3 years, it's a pretty big chance that they're not anymore compliant and there's some deviation. So even that, you can have a good control by using nice policies and implement policies which will monitor for any, or not only monitor, but address any deviation. There should be someone who will change the policies as well in order to get the expected result. So it's good to have like a process which will involve some kind of like annually review of the application, or let's say review for longer period of the current applications and how they match the established compliance and security standard practices which are already introduced in the organization. Of course, as we mentioned previously, it's having the continuously monitoring all the security standards and metrics are crucial. So it's definitely important, and Microsoft products can help here as well. Microsoft Defender for Cloud, it's as we mentioned multiple times, can provide you the necessary visibility, I would say, throughout all the services and how they are matching the compliance standard, all the policies that are applied in your organization or we plan to apply it. So, of course, visibility is something, I mean, how to say, even more fundamental, that like a starting point. So, as you see on the slide, violation triggers and enforcement actions. Again, we have to have good monitoring and being able to provide this information of all the deviation violations to the appropriate teams in order to take the appropriate action. So like a cloud platform team or cloud center of excellence team or name it, should provide the ability of the, let's say, cloud governance team or IT security team to be able to have the visibility to this deviation on the established policies. So, for example, if you detect that some kind of increase of the attacks, like any kind, let's say DDoS attacks with 40% in the last month, definitely the appropriate team should be notified in order to as soon as possible start think about the way to mitigate that. And this is just one of the example. Of course, we've been discussing this, but this is never ending exercise. So starting with the planning, in this phase of the governance maturity, so some of the activities that you may have in the planning phase is, to prioritize, understand some of the security baseline to chain options that you have. You can develop some kind of draft architecture document about how you believe that your security baseline will look like. Also, some data classification schemas. You may prepare some kind of policies review or like to initiate this kind of policies review. As we mentioned earlier, the importance of maintaining the policies is there, like your main way of how to say of see and control your and govern your cloud environment. So things like in this phase, you may think about even reviewing some of the Microsoft trends in the cybersecurity area, getting some reports. Think about the DevSecOps role in your organization, and yeah, in general, prepare yourself for and evaluate your current, let's say, capabilities and how you can use them or expand them, etc. So in next phase, in the build phase, actually, this is the time where you implement your security baseline architecture, your tools that you'll be using. This include like you may start with some POCs for implementing different services. So here are things that you should start implementing and determining the encryption standards that are going to be used in your organization, where you go, which data sources and how you're going to encrypt them. This is also including the design of the networking, the boundaries, how you secure them, and yeah, all initiatives which are
make sure you're aware of all the available tools that you're already paying for.
And yeah, and the importance in this phase is that here you will validate that your assumption. Okay, we may say pre-validate, because sometimes I've seen that, let's say some services are available in specific region, but they are not available in all availability zones, let's say, which sometimes may lead to very unpleasant outcome at very bad stage of your journey.
You're already halfway creating stuff.
Yes, you already have start creating stuff. You have all the architecture, you've done the POC, everything is working perfectly fine. You start implementing it, and this is just one of the examples where some challenges may arise. Of course, it's very important to be able to adapt quickly, but yeah, this is a good, important phase of pre-validating our assumption tools, architecture, etc. And the adoption and migration of this security baseline from, as I said, pre-validation to actual validation, or we may say from pre-deployment to actual deployment, is actually the adoption and migrate phase. So here we will get immediate feedback of our, let's say, our previous hard effort. So we will see some if there's some deviation of the policies that we created. We'll be able actually to test our security baseline architectures, policies, and tool chains against our workloads and in general our Azure environment. And of course, after this, after we have the security baseline already implemented, and how to say, we've been able to address all the early deviations, challenges, let's say, it's time to continuously
the hardest part.
Yeah, the hardest part. So by the way, I mean, we can talk a lot about this phase, but please, it's really important to have good documentation. I know everybody hates documentation. I hate the documentation.
Creating it, storing it.
But creating it,
updating it,
updating it, maintaining. Think about solutions that are the main goal of the solutions for the maintaining of the documentation should be usability, because if it's easy to use, people will use it. So maybe before starting any of the initiatives in terms of cloud, think about how you will maintain and manage your documentation and make this process easier. Because again, we can do a lot of great things. Nobody document them.
Yeah, the first three stages are probably the easiest ones, just because everybody's focused on. They treat this as an effort to as a project to complete something, but keeping it alive as a running process is by far the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and as you see here, incremental execution, we have the down arrow. So again, this process is continuously. At the end, it's we're talking about continuous improvement and of our environment, and this I can recall this in general the platform. If we treat that all of the cloud environments and in general cloud services as a big platform, so our product portfolio is built on top of this platform, and if we continuously using the platform services, we will be able to evolve with the platform itself. If we are not using these services, actually, and the difference between the evolution, we will not get the main benefit of using the cloud in general.
Actually, will have a negative impact on the
will have negative impact. There will be huge gap between the actual capabilities of
also any changes that happen on the Microsoft side that we are not on top of will sometimes will just disturb our process.
Yeah. And of course, this much longer discussion, and as usual, always depends. There could be use cases where it's good to not have don't have to lock in, but yeah, just in general. And on these slides, you may take a screenshot, or it's available in the Microsoft. So all the slides are from the Microsoft sources, all the pictures. But this is just a list of the some of the security services and their capabilities, which will help you throughout the process. You may take a screenshot if you'd like, or
there's extensive, much documentation.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're good documentation.
Just a sample.
Yeah, just a sample. And how to say, the main and I don't know, mother of all security, I don't know, services, the integration point, the most important thing in terms of security for Azure, and not only Azure environment, Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So I think maybe it's not even. I remember. By the way, John. I guess most of you know John Savio. He is doing outstanding podcast with a lot of great content presented very well. But what reminds me that even he started to do the same. Repeating the same topic year after doing the original one, because of all the new things that came for the same area. So definitely after covering all the governance disciplines, we'll jump back to the Microsoft Defender, and I don't think there's better start than Defender for Cloud, especially that with all the AI stuff and machine learning, which will be introduced, I believe, in the upcoming few to several months we need it. But yeah, in general, how to say, your first stop for monitoring your cloud security posture in general.
And it's relatively easy to implement compared to the others. I mean, it's
absolutely, yeah. For example,
some of the services are just a click of a button, especially the Microsoft.
Yeah. And you have again pretty how to say, good information of how to build your landing zone, which is compliant. For example, you can also, as you see here, and we mentioned earlier, it's supporting and improve the support of the other cloud providers and on-prem environment. But yeah, it's every company large organization have to be compliant for some security, some compliance standard, industry standard, and with Microsoft Defender for Cloud, you have everything pre-built there, and with few clicks, you can make sure that your entire cloud environment is
spanning across the different providers.
Absolutely, yeah, and even on-prem environment.
Yeah, even on.
So, yes, I think. We've been a bit.
We had a lot of slides this time about this.
A lot of slides. Hopefully, we've been able to. I hope that we've been able to cover, to some extent, the security baseline discipline. Keep in mind that this is how to say, very big topic, and I'm sure that we haven't been able to cover a lot of the stuff there. But yeah, it's. Again, one final advice from my side is incorporate your security initiative as early as possible of developing your product, adopting some other product, building your cloud environment, building your first landing zone. Make sure that the security teams, IT security or pure security or DevSecOps, whatever teams are,
and they are aware of the capabilities also.
Yeah, that's very important. Also, that's a very good point. I've seen a lot with the clients. They had this challenge where the cloud platform or cloud center of excellence team is much more knowledgeable, and actually they understand the capabilities of Azure, Azure AD, all of these stuff, but unfortunately they say that our identity team, security identity teams, they are not aware of the services. So again, these are some fundamentals of the initial stages of the cloud adoption
I think
journey.
we had it on the second or the first session about this, that the COE and the distribution of roles correctly is key to the success of this.
And building skill.
Upskilling people as well.
Yep. Right. So
some people left, I see from the chat, but if you have any questions, some of you joined at a later point during the presentation. If you have any question on anything that was presented
or not,
we have at least 2 or 3 more to do around the governance, different perspectives. We'll probably do them in the next few months
before the summer.
Before the summer,
we'll try to do the last 3. So the next one most probably would be the identity, because it's I don't know, it's very connected to the security part. So we'll try to do the identity next. It's
just a sort of an ongoing thing. For the people who don't know us, we like deal with kind of the security stuff. We see a lot of potential in it. We'll definitely focus more sessions during this year for this. And but if you have any questions, we'll at some point when we complete the series, we will create a sort of a one video and post it on our YouTube channel to combine everything that there is for this topic. It will be very sort of long, but at least we will have everything in place. So if you want to review that, and again, this is our view of things. This is based on our experience, how we think things should be done. So by no means we say it's the right thing. We just feel from what we saw from working with people, we feel that it has been successful in the implementation.
Absolutely. Okay, right then. So thank you for your time. And looking forward to seeing you in our next sessions.
Thank you.